So a lot of people are experiencing this where they have a lot of liabilities in their life. That might be relationships, that might be debt, that might be something that they're purchasing. How do you recommend, from your own experience, that people take those steps towards removing those liabilities, even when there's something that at one point they thought was really important to them, whether that's a relationship or whether that's something else?
Yeah, right. And so I think that's exactly what you just said. It's like, it's a almost a portfolio analysis of your life. It's like really stepping back and looking at life. Sometimes you look at it kind of a dead asset, and you're just like, should I offload this? Should I get rid of this asset? Should I sell it now? Is now the time to get rid of it? But I think it's looking at life that way and stepping back and examining your life. So the mentor actually takes Ryan Brooks through this process of looking at the 10 major areas of his life, including finance, including his career, but also looking at his fun and recreation and his relationship and time with family. And he really starts to have him rate these areas of his life on a scale of 0 to 10. And so the reader of the book can do the same thing, obviously. So I have resources in the back of the book that guide the reader through the same type of thing. So that same process of analyzing your life, stepping back and saying, how satisfied am I in this area of my life? And if it's not a 10, say it's an 8, or say it's a 5, you could just, if it's a 5, you look at that and say, okay, what would it look like if that were an 8? What would have to be different for this area of my life to be an 8? Or say an area is an 8, it's like, what would it look like if it were a 10? Start looking at that impossibility thinking, right? Think if everything was perfect, what would it look like? So often we don't do that, or we don't take the time to do it because we're so in the grind. We're so pushing to get the next thing done. We have our email box filling up, and we have so many things coming at us, so much to do. But that is the problem. So it's stopping and slowing down. And this is what I learned as a coach. So before we started Real Wealth, I was a coach for 15 years, and I coached a lot of clients. And that's one of the things I notice is that most people don't take the time, or haven't taken the time, to really step back and really look at their whole life and see what's working, what's not, what they want to change, what they want to improve, and get that clear vision for their future about where they want to go. So I've kind of wove that, everything I've learned from the members of Real Wealth over the last 19 years, working with all our members and hearing their stories about where they were, what they did, and where they are now. I wove a lot of those stories and the financial intelligence into the story. And I tried to also weave in a lot of those coaching principles that I learned coaching people on all areas of their life.
I hear a lot of that, and I really want to underline the importance of how intentional you're telling and sharing with people to be about all areas of their life, not just the investment side. Because one of the things, I've talked to a lot of clients just like you at Von Finch Capital, and one of the things that I notice is when I talk to folks and they have a very clear intentional reason why they're looking to invest, they're able to quickly decide whether something's actually going to help them get closer to that intentional vision they have or farther away. And the people who have the hardest time taking that leap, making those investments, taking those steps, investing in themselves, are the people who are unclear about what it is that they're actually trying to solve for. And when people don't understand what they want and why they want it, and they don't understand where they're at currently, it's really difficult for them to start to actually create a plan of determining how they're going to get where they want to go. And I love this idea of kind of laying out this wheel of life mentality of kind of outlining these different areas and rating those areas so that you can ask yourself the questions the same way you would do if you were paying somebody tens of thousands of dollars a year to coach you. You can actually coach yourself through some of that process in anticipation of either working directly with somebody who can help support you or going out and kind of creating that vision. So I really like what you outlined there.
Yeah, I really tried to communicate that. And I didn't want it to be a book of theory, right? Just ideas. I wanted to have it to go from theory to practice. And so that's one of the ways that you can go from theory to practice. Another way in the book, he talks about meeting his future self. And I think that's something that we can all do consistently, no matter how clear you think you are. I often will go into the future and meet my future self, which is there's a process that you can go through. Actually, one of the resources in the book in the back, it's free. You can go to this website. Actually, I'll just share it with your readers. It's if you go to realwealth.com/grow. that's the page for all the resources for the book. So once you buy the book, and you don't have to buy it though, just go to realwealth.com/grow. And there's the notebook that the protagonist keeps throughout the story. So it's just all the lessons learned. There is about a 10-minute future self visualization that I recorded that kind of guides people through that process. I often do it in front of the room when I'm speaking. I did it with all my coaching clients. And honestly, I do it with myself probably about once a week on average. I will actually, if I'm going to bed at night, I'll close my eyes and I'll do this little mental journey, and I'll go into the future 5, 10, 20 years. And I will hook up and meet with my future self and say, hey, what are you doing? I'll follow him around. I'll ask him questions. I'll learn some lessons. And what that does, it sounds a little California woo-woo, but I'm from California, so I gotta bring it, right? But it's what we're really doing is we're just tapping into our subconscious mind, like what we believe on a deep level. When we push that inner voice aside, the negative voices and everything, and we're just looking at, what does my compelling future vision look like? If I turn out to be my best self in the future, when I turn out to be my best self in the future, what does he look like? How does he operate? What does he live? All that stuff. So it's this really cool process. And what that does is it helps us tap into, which so many people are familiar with now, with that RAS, the reticular activating system, the part of the brain that filters out all the noise and helps us really see what we want. And so by meeting your future self and seeing your future and getting some answers that way, then you come back to today, and all of a sudden your antennas are extended, that reticular activating system is looking for things and opportunities and people and connections. And it's just like, oh, that fits in perfect into my future. That's what I need. And so it kind of keeps us aware, and we can actually put it into practice.
That's such a great strategy for being able to tap into what's really being thought below the surface. Because sometimes it can be very difficult to get clear on your vision and to check in to understand whether you are making the right decisions or going in the right direction. When you consciously try to make those decisions, it can be very logical. You can believe that you're doing the right thing, but by actually going through that process, it sounds like you tap into that intuition inside, that part of you who just knows what is actually best for you, and you can guide that future, some of those steps that you're going to take.
Yeah. And the brain doesn't really know that much different from what we envision and what we dream than reality, which is really cool. So you start laying down new neural pathways from neuron to neuron, and they get stronger and stronger. And you actually start to believe it. And you start to see it, and you start to act as if you are your future self. So it's a really powerful tool. I use it like before I go up to give a keynote. If I'm going to, and even coaching clients in the past, it would be like they're about to give an important sales presentation, or even ask someone out for a date or something like that. By actually imagining that you are your future self, you're like, oh, okay, this is me 5 years in the future. How would I show up? How would I be? And it changes us inside, and it changes our whole neural network, and we start to become that future self. So it takes practice and it takes consistency, but it pays off.
Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.